Welcome, everyone. You found Sanctuary's Coffee and Conversation Show. I'm Myrna Haskell, Executive Editor of Sanctuary Magazine. This is an online publication for women with a focus on the arts, philanthropy, health and wellness, culture, and community. You can find us at sanctuary-magazine.com. This morning, my guest is Dr. Amy Novatt. She is a board-certified OBGYN with over 35 years of experience helping women achieve health and wellness. She is also the host of the very popular GynoCurious podcast, so please go check that out. Welcome, Amy. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Good morning, Myrna. It's so lovely to see you. Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you too. I've known Amy for quite a while, and she is a specialist when it comes to the transitions we experience as women going into perimenopause and then menopause. And that's part of our topic today. We're going to kind of avoid the more physical stuff that a lot of people talk about, the hot flashes and the night sweats and all of those kinds of things that women experience and have challenges over. Instead, we're going to focus on the brain and mood changes and how those things sort of happen to us as we transition. And so I thought that it might be good, Amy, to start it out by just talking about, I know a lot of women maybe have been told this, or they might think that these things that they're experiencing, like short-term memory loss, or they don't remember somebody's name, or their moods are all over the place, that, maybe these things are in their heads.
Yeah. Well, for a very long time, women have been told, oh, honey, it's just in your head around all of our bodily functions and our experiences. So there's an opportunity for us, certainly with the change in science, where we're investigating more about what's happening in the woman's body, not just the man's body, but the woman's body. And again, what's happening hormonally to us during this time. And there's so many things that are going on. It's interesting, there's now like a list of 50 different signs and symptoms
Are
associated with
there?
this transition.
Wow.
And so when we used to just talk about the night sweat or the hot flush, now we're incorporating what goes on with the brain, what goes on with our joints, what goes on with our genitourinary symptom and organs. So there's just so much science being done, thank goodness,
Yes.
around all of this. And part of the challenge is that some of the science is really robust, and then some of the science that's being espoused as kind of dogma is based on data from a long time ago, and it's really not good science. So part of the challenge is that there's so much noise out there for any of us who are interested in learning about the perimenopause and menopause on social media, magazines everywhere, which is I'm so thrilled to be here today. There's so much noise, there's so much misinformation. So all of us are feeling overwhelmed with like, who do we listen to? Who's the true expert? Who's not just trying to sell me some supplements and thus giving me information that's not really valid? So it's hard. It's hard for all of us as we try to prepare for it, as we're in it, and then even beyond. How do we maintain health in the face of gone through this transition and the body changes that occur? Yeah,
Yeah, it's scary.
it is.
I kind of equate it to, we all went through, as, preteens, you go through those changes, which are scary at the time. And then you're like, oh my goodness, I'm going through crazy stuff again,
Yeah.
because I know for myself, I didn't experience as many symptoms as some of my friends and women I had talked to about it, because if we're together in this, it's nice to talk to other people who are experiencing
Absolutely.
things, right? But, so I guess everybody's different and individual on what they're experiencing. So is that part of, the confusion too? It's super individual about what kind of symptoms you'll have, whether or not you'll go through really different kind of mood swings or forgetfulness. Some women do, some women don't. Some women have horrible hot flashes, some don't. So is that part of it too, besides the misinformation that's out and about with social media and those things?
Yeah, it's a couple of things. It's one that we all have these individual experiences. I mean, I've heard some women say they love their flushes because they've always been cold. And so they get these flushes of heat and it's like, oh, this is fantastic. And others, of course, are standing in front of a board meeting and they're just sweating and it's terribly disruptive to the quality of their life. So it's not only that individually we experience these symptoms differently, but also what's true today may be different tomorrow for me as an individual. So I might have night sweats for 6 months. I make an appointment to see my gynecologist to talk about it. And then by the time I get that visit, my night flushes are gone. So I don't really have to talk about them. But then 3 months later, they come back, but I didn't talk about it at the visit because I wanted to focus on my vagina instead. So there's a lot of tumult.
It's
And
hard.
I
And
like to
then
talk.
too, you could lose the night sweats, but start experiencing something else 4 years later.
Absolutely. And I want to make sure that our listeners hear that there are many, many, many women who go through this transition with grace and grit and not terribly challenged. So, we're kind of talking about the extremes or even just the subtleties that you might be thinking about that can be, again, subtle and then for others, really extreme. And part of the challenge is I like to talk about how when we're reproductive age, we have kind of this dance. Many of us will say, oh, I'm feeling bloated. Oh, it's a few days before my period. Oh, I'm feeling really rageful. Oh, it's 24 hours before I'm going to start to menstruate. Or all those signs and symptoms that we could associate with our menstrual cycle that would kind of reproduce every month. So we had this dance. Oh, I'm feeling bloated. I'm going to wear my bigger pants. Oh, my mood is difficult. I'm going to make sure I don't get together with my family 24 hours before my menstrual cycle. Whatever it was, we could accommodate that dance because it became so familiar and predictable for so many of us. This is a time, this transition can be very unpredictable, and that's hard on us because, again, we tend to be, most of us are busy, busy, busy human beings. We're multitasking. We're, family members, we're workers outside the home, or we're working in the home. Sometimes we're parenting, sometimes we're taking care of elder parents. There's just so many things on our plate. And I have no doubt that part of the tumult isn't just physical, but that the emotional, the mood changes that we're going to talk about, and the brain fog that so many women describe during this
Yeah.
time is a result of, the 4 million balls in the air that we have. And we're just, in a way, we're getting less agile with the juggling act, but I think we're also getting wiser. I think we're getting to the point in our lives where we're beginning, Myrna, to say, I don't want to do all these things anymore. Just because I'm able doesn't mean I should. And we're beginning to
So I
get
like that.
wise and say, I'm going to create some boundaries. I'm not going to take care of my brother's, a daughter-in-law's sister's brother, that I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to focus on my smaller community, or I'm going to say to no to all those volunteer opportunities that I used to say yes to, or that I'm going to say to my partner, I don't want to go out every night. I want to stay home a certain number of nights, or whatever it is in your individual world, where we begin to say no. And oh my gosh, initially that is incredibly triggering for most of us because we're capable. We are so capable and we like to help others. That's just part of who we are as, for
Yes.
many, many women. So to start saying no, to start limiting what we do is kind of foreign to us. But boy, when we make that transition, I think it's the road to health.
No, you just have me thinking about the stress and anxiety of it. And so if you're talking about, taking a step back and saying, you know what, I just need to ease off some things. If you take the stress away, then sometimes that in itself just eases anything, even like, GERD or other types of things that happen to us,
That's right.
so yeah, I've told myself that this year, Amy, I am really going to focus on just what can I change? What can I do to be less anxious? What can I do to be more relaxed?
Yeah.
Because that constant stress and perfectionism and feeling like you have to do everything perfectly for everybody and anything around you is just it's very hurtful actually physically
It
too.
is. We have great science to demonstrate that stress is a contributor to kind of every chronic medical disease, cancer, reflux. I mean, really all the physical symptoms that so many of us experience. So if we can figure out a lifestyle that is more accommodating to our needs and wants and pleasures and joys, rather than just the responsibilities that we feel we need to attend to.
Right.
Sometimes we can't avoid some of those responsibilities. It's just part of life, right? But we often can titrate even if it's giving up one thing. It's amazing. I found like when I give up one thing, and it might be just a minor thing, I don't know, trying to think of an example, but like, oh, okay, I'm no longer going to take my dog for an hour walk on Monday and Wednesdays because those are my really busy days. I'm going to do it only for a half hour. And it sounds ridiculous and simplistic, but amazing what that
No, you know what? Not
half
to me.
hour. Yeah,
Because you gave yourself back 30 minutes.
that's right.
So what
That's
can
right.
you do with that, right? Maybe
That's
you can do
right.
some breath work and meditation before you leave from work for work. I don't know, but
That's
something,
right.
right?
That's right. So, what we're talking about is lifestyle modification. And with all the science that's going on right now around women's health, and the paucity of it for so many decades, that one thing that is consistently true across all specialties is that lifestyle modifications impacts our health. This is science. This is not just wanting it to happen. This is not wishful thinking. That we know that movement and exercise, nutrition, mindfulness, that the good sleep,
Yeah,
these are
sleep.
all modifications that if we can, if we're able to, if we can just continue to chip away at them and improve them and weave them into our daily lives, these things are more important than hormones, more important than most medications, that it's incredible. It's
Yeah,
absolutely incredible. Now, the
just I
challenge, of
agree.
course, is doing all that, right? I had
Yes.
a dear friend who used to say if she did everything that she wanted to do to promote health, she'd never get out of the house between making her own, almond milk, meditation, movement. It takes time. It takes a certain amount of um, freedoms. If you're taking care of parents or children still, or you have a job 9 to 5, there's not a lot of time left in your day.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so again, just doing these small movements can be so impactful, and we tend to feel the benefits of them.
I'm so glad you said that because I know the listeners are already, their minds are thinking, what small little change can I make starting
Yeah.
today? So that's good. Can I ask you though, as you were talking, I thought of this based on like, the hundreds of women you've worked with. Have you noticed that, or maybe you haven't talked with them about this, but the types of things that they experienced in puberty, are they usually like kind of matched in when you go through this later transition in perimenopause? Like, let me think of an example. For instance, if for girls who during menstruation had really like sort of strong mood changes, you talked about mood
Mhm.
changes, are they going to then later in life as they go through perimenopause and menopause, that's going to be their thing because it
Yeah.
was when they went through puberty? Have you found a parallel there at all?
Sometimes there's some bookending that goes on where they're very parallel and very similar, but sometimes not at all. And
Okay,
there's no
so
prediction. So for example, the young woman who during her pubertal transition is talking about just chaotic periods, heavy, prolonged, frequent. And then they start having fewer periods as they move towards that last menstrual period, and they're celebrating because they've just had difficult periods for a long time, and particularly during that early phase of their hormonal life. So, not necessarily. Moreover, there's some science to suggest that the way your mother experienced the transition may be indicative of how you experience it. But again, when I look at my mother's life, my grandmother's life, they ate differently, they moved differently. Smoking was a huge part of their life, and it wasn't for me. The alcohol consumption was very different. So it's not an absolute. Because again,
And that
some
goes back to lifestyle again.
Yes, yes, yes. And there are genetics. There's certainly
Yes.
genetics involved with this. We know that, especially when we look at certain brain changes that go on during this time. There are certain proteins that some people have in their body that others don't, and this creates some risk factors, et cetera. I'm not going to get too scientific here, but genetics do play a role, and there are certainly women I've met whose mother, grandmother, sister, and herself all had their last menstrual period at 52 and 3 months. They just did. It's a remarkable
And my mother and I were
legacy.
both 58. So there's
Uh-huh.
that.
58. That was
Like
your last menstrual
my
period.
mother breezed through though perimenopause, and I did not exactly. I wasn't terrible, but I had more symptoms than she did. So
Yeah.
there you go. What you just said played out in my life. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah.
fascinating. It's fascinating. Uh,
Well, I want to definitely get into the hormone therapies, though, because as you know, in November of last year, the FDA changed some of the black box warnings. I don't know all the specifics on it. It doesn't matter for that. But I do know there's a lot of women listening today that were fearful of receiving estrogen and progesterone therapies because they were worried about blood clots. So I have stroke in my family, or breast cancer. I have breast cancer in my family, or other things that they were warning you about, which kind of scared a lot of women away from using that when they really could have or should have because of the amount of challenges they were experiencing. So I was hoping you could talk to, what's it good for? And then the second piece to this new FDA thing that's going on, and the fact that we shouldn't be so scared and what the
sure.
risks actually are.
Sure. So just to give some historical context, in 2002, the Women's Health Initiative study was done, which was a very, very large, very, very expensive scientific study that was looking at, actually, their objective was to understand cardiac health and hormone therapy. And after some years of study, they halted the study because the information that was being generated suggested that there was a significant increased risk of breast cancer in particular.
Okay.
Now, with all those years since then, science has been generated to really focus in on what the Women's Health Initiative study information is pertinent and valid versus what's invalid. And part of the trouble is the cohort of women that were studied in the Women's Health Initiative were already older. They were 65 and older. So we know that all of us women, no matter what, as we age, we're at increased risk of disease, cancers, heart disease, stroke, clots. We just are, just by the nature of aging and living in the world. But unfortunately, when the announcement in 2002 was put out, for anyone who remembers, on every publication, every news program, stop HRT, it's killing us. It was a
Yeah.
real disservice to women because, one, so many women were getting symptomatic relief from their hormone
Hmm.
therapy. And those risks turn out were actually not true, not valid. So subsequently, what science has demonstrated is that there's kind of a time frame where hormone therapy, so we used to call it hormone replacement therapy, we don't call it that anymore, we call it hormone therapy or
Okay.
menopause therapy. That menopause therapy is probably the safest within 10 years of your final period and before you're 60 years of age. And that the risks of breast cancer, stroke, heart disease are all very minimal. And in fact, the current guidelines from the Menopause Society, all the guiding organizations that help us understand science from fiction, are saying that hormone therapy have three major indications. One, to treat vasomotor symptoms, those hot flushes, night sweats. Now, many women will come to my office, Myrna, and they're not really having too many of these night sweats, for example, but their sleep is being impacted by heat intolerance,
Hmm.
or their mood is being impacted by sleep deprivation due to the hot flushes. So they're not coming because of the flushes, but they're coming because of the mood. Hormone therapy can help improve and get rid of those night sweats, for example, and then the sequelae from that, what might be arising as a result of not sleeping well. The other indicator is the genitourinary syndrome of the menopause. This is the phenomenon of when estrogen levels start to decrease, women will describe an array of symptoms associated with the pelvis and the bladder, everything from vulvar and vaginal dryness to intolerance to penetrative sex to urinary symptoms like urgency, frequency, a feeling of frequent urinary tract infections where they're not infections, they're just those symptoms of infections.
Ah,
And you give estrogen for that. And the third indicator is for bone health. We know estrogen can help promote bone density. We all build bone until we're about 30, and then we all start to break it down.
oh, really? Only till
Yep.
about, oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
The rate
Wow.
at which we break it down is genetically determined, is determined by how active or inactive we are, determined whether we're smokers or non-smokers, whether we take steroids on a chronic basis because we have, I don't know, a chronic asthma, breathing issues, autoimmune phenomenon that the physician has given us steroids for. All of these factors contribute. And then the slope in which we're breaking that bone down increases during this transitional period
Okay.
and then slows down. But we want to help promote bone. So if a woman
Yes.
comes to me and says, listen, Amy, I'm going through the perimenopause, or I'm newly postmenopausal, meaning I had my last menstrual period. It was a year ago. So I'm technically postmenopausal. My mother, my sister, my aunts, all of whom had osteoporosis. I want to make sure I don't go there. I don't get that. It can be used to help prevent it.
Okay.
Hormone therapy is not a treatment, however, and this is kind of a little bit more granular than perhaps you want me to go, but I just want to make sure it's really clear to our listeners. If you've already been diagnosed with osteoporosis,
Hmm.
estrogen is not the treatment of choice per se. There's other medications for that. Um, but
So it's
again,
more of a preventative
yes.
if you haven't had a screening that came out funky. It's more
Yeah,
preventative.
part of the
Okay.
challenge is the current guidelines suggest that the bone density scan, a DEXA scan, should be done when we're 65. And all of us clinicians are like, why are we waiting until 65?
I
We want
just
to
had
know.
mine done, Amy.
Yeah. And it's an
So
easy
yeah,
test.
yeah.
And I always say to women too, even if they say, I'm not going to take any hormones, and I respect that decision, it might incentivize you to get out of your chair a little bit more often. It might, encourage you to eat more calcium and have vitamin D in your life than you're having. So that information can be utilized for a variety of reasons. So if you can get your clinician to order a DEXA scan before 65, I would recommend it.
Oh, good.
So the
Yeah.
benefits of hormones, at this point, we know help with the vasomotor symptoms and symptoms related to that, helps with that genitourinary syndrome of the menopause, and helps with bone health. What happened with the recent FDA declaration was it's concerning on a number of levels and wonderful on a few levels. So the black box warning, what that is anyone who's ever opened up an estrogen product or a hormone therapy product, there's always this literally black box warning that
Okay.
says hormones increase the risk of breast cancer, stroke, blood clots. And the societies that are focusing on this issue in women's health have been saying for a long time, vaginal estrogen does not increase these risks. There's
And that's
fantastic
the
science.
creams. Do you mean the
That's the
creams?
cream
Okay, so
suppository.
topical versus like
Yep.
pills or patches or things like
That's
that.
right. It's not systemic, it's only for the vagina. And we can get vaginal estrogen through creams, suppositories, or actually a little ring. It's called the E string or S string. We know from lots of science that the risk of clots, stroke, breast cancer from vaginal estrogen doesn't exist. So we have
Oh,
been asking the FDA to get rid of the black box warning for vaginal estrogen for a long time. Now, McCary, the FDA said, oh, listen, hormone therapy reduces the risk of cardiac disease, reduces the risk of dementia, promotes longevity. And that science is based on old science. It's not really true that the current guidelines say do not use hormone therapy to promote cardiac health. There's no science to substantiate that yet.
Okay.
Moreover, in terms of dementia, the current guidelines say we don't know. We don't know if hormone therapy helps or hinders. There's science out there that demonstrates that hormone therapy actually may increase our risk of dementia. So it's not conclusive yet. So
Okay.
nobody should be taking hormone therapy to promote or prevent dementia or Alzheimer's.
Okay.
And moreover, in terms of the longevity issue, we don't have science to support that. So unfortunately, it was almost like the bookend of the Women's Health Initiative, where in 2002, everybody should go on it. Now everybody should be on it. And that's just misguided. It's not
Okay.
based on science. I'm a little cynical. There's a lot of money being made on selling hormone therapy right
Yeah,
now.
there's that issue.
It's
But
not for
it sounds
everyone.
like the good news is though that there's more of an eye on this. So if that means more studies are going to be done, more good studies, that's never a bad thing, right? We can maybe
Never. It's
figure some of this out.
fantastic.
So
Absolutely. No, I'm thrilled. Listen, I am thrilled in a way. I mentioned the noise early on in our conversation. To some degree, I'm thrilled by it. Finally, we're talking about vaginas. We're
yeah.
talking about brain health. We're talking about the menopause. Women's health is out there. I am thrilled.
Yeah, me
The
too.
trouble with, the trumpets, blaring is that there's a lot of information out there that's not based on really good science. And we try to make recommendations based on good science because otherwise there might be risks associated with it.
Right.
And we're not, each individual woman responds to these therapies differently. So again, there shouldn't be a blanket statement of like, oh, everyone should be on it because it would protect them against osteoporosis. That's, first of all, not everyone is at risk for osteoporosis. There
Right.
are
That's right.
plenty of women who will never have osteoporosis. Moreover, there are women with osteoporosis who will never fracture. So it's a very individualized science. And that's where I come in, where I hope GynoCurious, my podcast is helpful to women, and my clinical practice, Myrna, where you come in and you say, oh, my family has breast cancer, for example, or gosh, the only thing that's really hurting me at this point is penetrative sex. Everything else feels great. And I'm not at risk for osteoporosis and whatever.
And then
I
a cream
would,
can be okay for that.
yes,
Topical.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. It's fantastic. So you really want to try to get someone to work with you on an individual basis
Right.
and be
That's
thoughtful
so
about,
important having the right
yeah,
doctor that you feel comfortable talking to, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
there's that ongoing conversation. And then if you are experiencing something, if you decide with your doctor that menopause therapy is the right thing for you, if you're experiencing anything that's a little off from that, you need to, again, have a conversation right away. You don't wait on those kinds of things. Let me
yeah.
ask you one quick question. I heard you mention
Anything.
the 10 years, and I had read about that. What about women similar to me, if they didn't go into menopause till they were already in their late 50s-ish, say? Is that then safe 10 years from them when you're in your late 60s to have menopause therapy? Or is it really just, by early 60s, once you start getting to be around 65 or so, don't?
A
I'm a
great
little,
question. It's a great question. That's one cohort, but the other cohort that's also asking is, hey, I didn't get to take menopause therapy because of that Women's Health Initiative. I'm now
yeah,
63 or 66 or 67, and I want to take menopause therapy because my vagina hurts, or I'm still getting night sweats, or whatever it is,
yeah,
whatever the symptom they might be having, or they want to promote bone health because they haven't been diagnosed with osteoporosis yet, but they have some changes. Is it safe for you and for those other women to start hormone therapy? So this is again something we're studying, we're trying to figure out. We, again know that as we age, these risk factors increase just by the sheer nature
yes.
of aging. So with that in mind, I
Which
would
makes the
say
study harder, I would think, right? Because you have to
absolutely.
take those things into consideration
That's
as
right.
more outlying things that you're putting into the study. Well,
That's
this
right.
woman was 67. So is
That's
she
right.
going to have X, Y, and Z things going wrong with her anyway?
This
I
is
know
why science is so
that's where
hard.
it's gray all in there
Yeah.
right now.
So I
Okay.
always say to women, I mean, I do give women hormone therapy, even if they're after 60. I
Okay.
do. But it's with the caveat of, I need you to know that this may increase your risk slightly of blood clots that go from the legs to the heart and the lungs, might slightly increase your risk of stroke, and it may increase your risk of heart disease. I don't know that. And then the question of dementia and Alzheimer's is, a big question. I don't know. So I need
Yeah, I
you.
was going to ask you about that because I've heard that from women too. They're like,
Mhm.
oh my God, I had such bad brain fog. I run into people, I don't know what their name is. I can't introduce them to my husband, and I should know this person's name because I've known them for 10 years, but maybe I didn't see them for 2 months and now I forgot their name. All of this, it's a panic thing. So those sort of what we call generally brain fog things, short-term memory and forgetfulness, just because you have that during perimenopause and transitioning into menopause doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get dementia or Alzheimer's, right? Is that
Absolutely not. And the other thing, it's really important for everyone listening to hear that there's a certain amount of memory change that, again, just happens with the aging brain.
Mhm.
It just does. Sure, all of us know an 80-year-old who, I have a 94-year-old friend whose memory is sharper than
Oh,
mine.
I know people like that.
And, but I
I
also
know. And
know
then it makes you feel like, what's wrong with me?
I know. And it's,
Yeah.
it's some of that again is genetics. Some of that is the way she uses her brain, what she does with her
Yeah.
brain. But there's
Lifestyle again.
Yes, yes. So there's a certain amount of memory shifting that just occurs.
Okay.
And it's interesting when you speak to most women, the thing that they talk about most is forgetting people's names. And again, I think part of that is the multitasking. So when I'm introduced to you at the party, I'm also listening to the conversation that's happening over here. I'm thinking about, oh, I got to leave in 15 minutes. Oh, I have to finish up this piece of food that's in my mouth. Like, that it's just there's a lot going on in the brain. So, there are some exercises that we can do to try to really improve how we respond to someone's introducing, if someone introduces themselves to you and how you remember their name. We
I
can all
know.
do
I
that.
try to do little mnemonics, but
That's
that doesn't
right.
always work either.
No, I can't tell you how often
I'm
I've had to.
notorious for forgetting names, by the way.
Oh, me too. And I quite frankly have always been that way. But it's funny, my husband and I were at a function the other day, and I said to him, listen, if someone comes up and starts speaking with us, and I don't introduce you, it's because I don't remember their name. Please go ahead and introduce yourself because I don't want it to be awkward. And we've gotten very good at that. He knows that
I
I
have to do that with
so
Kirk.
many women and I
Yeah.
don't remember their names but I remember them. So it's frustrating. But again, I think if we were all really transparent about this, we'd all say, yeah, I'm not really good at it and we should just we should all wear name tags.
I found, Amy, that it's more, at least for me, and again, everything's individual, but I meet people in so many different sort of circumstances, the
Yes.
arts world and business networking and social things and introductions from people for whatever, and or people from the past that I just haven't seen a really long time ago. So I kind of told myself that that was a lot of it. It's not that I'm just like, I can't remember somebody's name all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
There's
hoping
only
that's
so
what it
much
is.
neuroplasticity we have. There's only, I mean, it continues, and that's part of the reason why some of this brain fog that we experience during the transition actually quiets down and goes away. We know that the brain has a way of um, uh,
Readjusting itself in it. Well, that's real
readjusting.
layman, I understand.
No, 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 but that's what it does. It creates new neuron pathways to compensate for a change in gray and white
That's so
matter that
cool.
we know happens in the brain during this aging phenomenon.
That's so
So
cool.
we have capacity to continue learning. We have capacity to kind of move away from that brain fog for sure. Does it happen with everyone? No. But again, I think there's a lot of reasons why that might be going on for an individual. And I'd like to remind folks that for most of us, this is a very simplistic example, so bear with me. But they might say, I can't remember sometimes the name of something or the name of a person. And I usually, a few hours later, like, her name is Mary.
I
Oh,
know it comes to you in the car and
that's
when you
right.
left or
That's
whatever. Oh
right.
gosh, that happens to me all the time.
That's common and that's not worrisome. What's
Okay.
worrisome is if you walk up to, let's say, I'm going to hold up my cup. If I walk up to this thing and I'm like, I not only don't know what it's called, but I don't know what it's for.
Yeah.
That's that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's where memory is an issue, and that's when your loved ones or you need to seek help. Because
Right.
then the
Okay.
processing is it's a whole different layer of um, uh, brain capacity that we're talking about. So
Okay.
again, I want to reassure the listeners. Most of us forget people's names. Most of us don't come up with a word as quickly as we used to. I
That
don't know
makes
about
me
you.
feel better.
Yeah, but I don't know about you, Myrna, but everything's a little bit slower,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I used to
I know
be.
your 60s. I remember my mom and her friend back when I was probably in my early 30s at the time. I had really little kids. And I remember them saying, your 50s are a breeze. Just wait till you get to your 60s. And so, anyway, I would like to finish this off though, because you're such an expert and you have just such a wealth of information on this. I'm so
Thank you.
appreciative. What about those that are out there listening to us right now and they're still freaking out? Like there's so many changes going on with them, both physical and mental. What can these women do to sort of settle things down?
Mm,
Take a deep
I'm
breath.
glad you brought that up. So, one, I want to reassure each one of you, you're not alone. You're not alone. Two, that no one gets to say that these fears and worries and events and symptoms are just nothing. That there's something and they're valid and important and need to be addressed. That there are many ways to address these symptoms and signs, whether it's conventional treatments or alternatives. I know women who have seen acupuncturists and homeopaths and herbalists and had great success.
Mhm.
And I'm a conventional MD, but I'm very open to these alternative treatments because no one has, no one knows how to treat everyone in only one way.
Yes.
Everybody responds to treatments differently. And if acupuncture, for example, albeit there's not a lot of science there, but if there's anecdotal experience within your own body, like, oh my gosh, I'm sleeping better as a result of having acupuncture, do
Do it. Yeah.
acupuncture,
I
particularly these
agree
modalities
completely.
that chances are they're not going to harm you. Now, there are caveats there. There's some herbal treatments you have to be very thoughtful about. They can affect the liver, they can affect the kidney. So you have to be thoughtful about them,
Right.
like any other intervention, but that you're not alone, that there are options. As you pointed out, if you can find, a menopausal expert, not all GYNs or family doctors know how to talk about this.
I
They've
know.
been they've been doing, OBGYNs have focused on the obstetrical part of
Yep.
their work, or the gynecologists they're just not interested, whatever. So find someone whom you can talk to. There are these telehealth platforms now that folks can have access to. Some of them are better than others, but they are a way to at least start a conversation with people who are interested in the perimenopause and menopause. And breathe, take a walk, dance, sing, do all the things that we know actually hormonally change our inner environment. We know that endorphins, oxytocin, the hormones that help lift our mood,
Right.
help us feel better, um, are available to us. We just have to dance, we have to sing, we
Yeah.
have to walk, we have
I
to
love the dancing.
breathe. Yeah.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it's such a, in a way, a simple solution. So embrace these, these lifestyle changes. You don't have to do it for an hour. Dance for 10 minutes, like a wild
Right.
woman in your living room. And trust me, you will feel better.
And take a break from the computer, get up and go
Oh
for a
my
brisk
gosh,
walk. Yeah.
huge. and the
Yeah,
news.
that's something I've been really working on, and breath work is another one that helps with anxiety for me. So,
Yeah, yeah. And gathering with other women. Our
yes.
community of women is so, so important. So again, one of the reasons I am doing GynoCurious is for women to tell their stories about a whole array of issues. So please go to gynocurious.com.
Yes,
It's on
definitely. There's
Radio
some
Free
great
Ranking.
episodes on there. And
Thank
you know what?
you.
This is a great segue, Amy, because I know you have a fabulous event coming up at Gigi Trattoria in Rhinebeck. So I thought you might want listeners to hear a little more about that, or perhaps like a new episode that you have coming up that you think might be related to this or that our listeners might be really interested in.
Great. And of course, I wish I had been more organized, but January 28th from
Yes.
6 to 8 p.m., I'm working with co-host Melissa Eppard on Sex Talks. That's what we're talking about. Melissa co-owns a company called Upstate Mary, where she makes products for the vagina for sex, lubricants, moisturizers. And I'm going to talk about the changes that happen in our body, how we might feel and experience sexual play and pleasure, and approaches towards improving it if it's challenging for you. It's going to be a group. We already have, like, we're full house already. So there's going to be a group of
Yay! I'm so
women,
glad.
which doesn't mean you shouldn't go on
I
because
know. And listeners, listen, in Sanctuary on our events page and also on our social media, you can find
great.
links
Or
to
you can
the
go to
sign up page.
Gigi's, or you can go to Upstate Mary. We have links all. So we always know people don't show, so there's still room.
Yes.
It could be a really terrific
Oh, I
event.
hope you have good weather. I think you're going,
Yeah, I
it's going to
know
be
this
cold,
is,
but I think it's clear at
I
least.
know it's something. And then in February at the Star Library in Rhinebeck, I'm working with a woman who's a life coach, and we're going to talk about health in the midlife. So look at the Star Library events page, you'll see that. I think it's the 26th. I apologize. I don't remember. I
We'll
think
put
it's,
it up. We'll put it up in the credits. You
yeah,
can send
thank
that to
you.
me.
Yeah, there's all of these conversations happening, and it's opportunity to gather with other women to tell your stories or not. I mean, women will
Or
come to
just
these
listen.
events, just
Yeah.
listen and feel bolstered by the energy in the room, bolstered by the knowledge that you're not alone. There's nothing strange about you or what's happening to you. It's natural, but boy, can it be provocative and triggering and difficult and wonderful. I want to leave on a note that
Yeah.
this
Let's
is
leave
a
on a good
time
note there.
where women are finally not worried about getting pregnant if that was a challenge for them, where they can have sex without that concern, where they are making decisions that are about them and not about everyone around them, where there's so much wisdom we have in this fifth and sixth decade that is so delightful and
Yes.
delicious. And if we're lucky, there's still more, there's still room for great health ahead and ways of improving health. We're not stuck. We have opportunity to improve our mind and our body, even in our fifth, sixth, seventh decades. We just have to, make a concerted effort, which is, I think I'd end on this. When I talk to women about sex as they age and they're like, oh, I'm not interested anymore. I don't have that libido anymore. I don't have that lust. I'm like, I want to remind you that you used to have date nights with your partner, right? Oh, you're going to meet him for pizza, and pardon me, it could be a female, male, I don't care. You're meeting your partner for pizza, and you take a shower, you might shave, you might put on some new lingerie. You know that you're probably going to have sex at the end of the night. Why don't we do that now? Why don't we say, I'm going to prepare for it? It's a funny thing. So have fun, have dates, have an
Have
opportunity.
fun. I like that advice.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
time for us to
Yeah.
experience our pleasure because we've been denying ourselves for a long time.
Well, thank you so much, Amy. It's been a true pleasure for me, and I know
Oh,
for the audience as well. This has been
thank you.
great. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
joining me.
Thank you
I'll
for
close
having
as
me.
sure.
Yeah.
I'll close as I always do by wishing all of our listeners and our readers good health, happiness, and continued inspiration. Thank you so much for joining
Mm.
us.